Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is John Viglotti, and on behalf of OTC Markets Group, we're very pleased you joined us for our next presentation from StarPharma Holdings. Please note you can submit questions for today's presenters in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for one-on-one meetings through the Schedule Meetings tab found on the conference platform. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Dr. Jackie Fairley. She's the Chief Executive Officer of StarPharma Holdings, which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol SPHRY and on the ASX under the symbol SPL. Welcome back, Dr. Fairley.
Thank you very much, John, and thank you everyone for joining us today for this presentation. What I'm going to do is to run through an overall presentation of StarPharma, and I'm going to be moving quite quickly, so I do encourage you to submit any questions if you have those. StarPharma is an Australian company listed on the Australian Stock Exchange, which has developed a proprietary platform technology, which is based on a kind of polymer called a dendrimer. These dendrimer molecules are very versatile, and from them we have developed a number of very valuable anti-infective products, as well as some really interesting drug delivery technology, which is the subject of a number of global partnerships and which has also allowed us to develop a deep portfolio of oncology assets. We have a strong financial position and we have a strong institutional share register. I'm going to talk more about these partnerships as we run through the presentation. So this is really just to give you a high-level view of how deep the portfolio is of products. So we have a number of marketed products there, including our antiviral nasal spray called Viralise, and a novel bacterial vaginosis product called Flurstat or Vivagel BV. But in addition to that, through our DEP platform technology, we have developed 3 clinical stage oncology assets, which are reaching the completion of that those clinical programs, which I'll talk about in some detail in a moment, which have got some really interesting efficacy improvement and side effect reduction. And we also have these partnered programs. So these partnered programs are have the potential to yield a very significant value to the company, both in terms of royalties and milestones. And I'll run through those in a moment using the AstraZeneca program as an example. We have partnered with 3 of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies globally, and we are continuing to expand those partnerships. So this is a very important value driver for the company. We also have behind that a number of very potentially valuable products, antibody drug conjugates, where we released some exciting data recently, which is in comparison to the Enhertu product by AstraZeneca, as well as radiopharmaceuticals, which I'll talk about in a moment. There are a number of upcoming milestones for the company. As I mentioned, we have completed recruitment in a number of our oncology assets, so 2 of our 3 assets. 1 is approaching completion. We have multiple partnered programs, so Merck, AstraZeneca, Genentech, and also Chaisun out of China. The clinical program for AZD0466, the AstraZeneca product, is at a really exciting stage, and I'll touch on that in a moment. And then we have a number of these other preclinical radiotherapeutics, antibody drug conjugates, and commercial progress on our marketed products. So first of all, I wanted to just highlight the DEP platform. DEP stands for Dendrimer Enhanced Product, and what we're doing here is we're using our proprietary highly branched polymer or dendrimer molecule, which is on the left-hand side of the slide, and we're using that to deliver drugs more effectively. We can create new intellectual property, we can improve efficacy, and we can reduce side effects. And all of these things are very valuable features which we can deliver not only to our own internal candidates, where we take generic products and we improve them, or through these partnered programs, which I'll talk about in some detail in the subsequent slides. The reason why this technology is so well suited for oncology is because we can get targeting of the tumor. So we get 40 to 70 times more drug in tumor tissue when we deliver with a dendrimer than you do with drug alone. And we also get 20 years new patent life. The broad applicability of the platform is also a very significant benefit. We can use it to improve the performance and to reduce side effects, for instance, in standard chemotherapeutic drugs. We can use it to generate antibody drug conjugates, like the product in HER2 and others. We can use it to develop radiotheranostics, and we can also use it in non-oncology applications. So things like endocrinology, so things like insulin and diabetes and antivirals. So it is a very versatile platform. The other beauty of the platform is that we are able to partner it widely, and so we can have multiple partnerships running in parallel, which are not funded by StarPharma, they're funded by our partners, and each and every one of those partnered programs has the ability to potentially generate milestones and royalties and returns to StarPharma and our shareholders, but without the need to fund those programs. And so this is a very powerful platform. We can have multiple partnerships. You could have 10 or 15 or 20 of these running in parallel, not funded by StarPharma, but funded by our partners. And each one of them has a free carried interest, essentially, on the commercialization of those. The most advanced of these partnered programs is a very exciting oncology drug called AZD0466. This is being developed for a number of hematological or blood cancers, so myeloid leukemia, lymphocytic leukemia, also non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And this product, without the dendrimer technology, was really not a product that could be developed. By applying the dendrimer technology to this, we have been able to improve the therapeutic window of this drug by more than 20-fold. So that's reducing side effects and improving performance. And in return for that, StarPharma has a multi-product license, of which this is the first product covered by it for AstraZeneca. And this AZD0466 product alone is eligible for milestones of up to $124 million, plus royalties, which escalate as the product becomes more successful. So this single product has the ability to return to StarPharma over the life of the product, to return to StarPharma and to our shareholders in excess of $2 billion, so around 2.4 billion Australian dollars. That's in the combination of milestones and royalties. So that gives you an understanding of just the power of this platform and the potential financial upside of these programs. This product is getting to a really exciting stage. It's been in the phase 1 study, so the dose escalation phase, where progressively higher doses are provided or are given to patients. And it is reaching the completion of that phase 1 program with a view to moving into phase 2 within the next few months, we would expect. When it moves into phase 2, there will be another milestone payable to StarPharma, and then these milestones progressively will be paid. The expectation is this product will be a rapid development candidate because it is targeting a very significant unmet need of patients who have failed other therapies. And so this product is at a really exciting stage, and we expect that there'll be further news out of this program and also potentially our other partnered programs and AstraZeneca programs as we move forward. Recently, AZD0466, which had been being developed just for these hematological or blood cancers, was also shown to be highly active in small cell lung cancer, which is a very difficult and aggressive malignancy, with a 5-year survival rate of only 7%. So this is an area where there's a critical need for new therapies, and some really exciting data was shown for AZD0466 in preclinical models of small cell lung cancer, showed it was better than other BCL2 inhibitors, including the AbbVie product venetoclax, and importantly, significantly better than standard of care. And so when small cell lung cancer models resistant to standard of care were treated with this product, there was a response. So this is a really exciting therapy, which is in clinical development, expected to move into phase 2 shortly, and that will generate further returns for StarPharma. So very quickly, I wanted to touch on our internal programs. We have 3 oncology agents that we have taken, where we have taken a marketed oncology product which has side effects and black box warnings, which are as a result of the sort of significant toxicities associated with these. And then we have used our dendrimer technology to improve the performance of those drugs. We have a 20-year patent life on those, so we're able to restart that patent clock. And these are all now clinical assets reaching towards the end of the phase 2 development activities. And StarPharma is in licensing discussions with third parties to pick up commercial rights to these products for marketing. So this is at a really interesting stage of the company's development, and over the next few months we will be reporting clinical trial results from these programs, and in parallel we are already in discussions with commercial partners. Now, these 3 products, there's a lot of data around them, and I won't have time to go into all of them, but I wanted to highlight particularly the most advanced with it, which is dep-carbazitaxel, which is based on the prostate cancer drug Jevtana, which is widely used and sells around $500 million. It was developed by Sanofi, and it does have a number of black box warnings because it has a very complicated formulation, which has a detergent in it, which results in allergic reactions which can be fatal. And so as a result of that, there needs to be pre-treatment with antihistamines and cortisone. And in addition to that, it has a very significant effect on bone marrow. And these patients, prostate cancer patients, often are quite frail and quite elderly, and so their tolerability of these very bone marrow toxic drugs is really not very good. And what the StarPharma product, dep-carbazitaxel, which is on the right-hand side of this slide, has been able to achieve is a significant reduction in the bone marrow toxicities, and I'll show you some data for that in a moment, equivalent or enhanced efficacy in prostate cancer, and in addition to that, we do not need to pre-treat our patients with cortisone because we do not have a detergent in our formulation. So we've got a water-soluble, detergent-free formulation of what is a widely used prostate cancer medication called cabazitaxel or Jevtana. Now, before I give you the comparative data of these 2 products, I want to make a couple of points just about the differences between the Jevtana cohort of prostate cancer patients, which will be in the subsequent slides, and the dep-carbazitaxel cohort of patients. The patients in dep-carbazitaxel were much more heavily pre-treated. On average, only 16% of the Jevtana patients had received 2 or more lines of treatment. However, in the case of StarPharma, it was an average of 4 prior anti-cancer therapies and an average of more than 70 cycles of treatment. 95% of our patients had already had taxanes, so closely related product, and a number of them had cabazitaxel itself. And so they had already failed those products, and therefore you would not expect them to respond. 56% of our patients had more than 2 prior chemotherapy regimens. So they were a very heavily pre-treated patient group. We did not need to pre-treat them because we have an aqueous formulation which has no detergent, unlike the original product. And what we see when we compare side-by-side efficacy on the left-hand side and safety on the right-hand side of the dep-carbazitaxel product in prostate cancer patient compared to the published data for Jevtana, which is in the grey column. What you can see there is on efficacy measures like PSA 50, so a reduction of the PSA level, prostate-specific antigen level, we achieved significantly better efficacy than Jevtana against that measure. Similar efficacy in terms of radiological response, but as I said, our patients were very much more heavily pre-treated. In terms of the progression-free survival, we saw a roughly 30% extension in the progression-free survival period, which is really quite significant given how heavily pre-treated these patients were. And on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see the key safety measures. And you can see that for dep/cabazitaxel, our patients with prostate cancer who were in fact quite elderly and quite frail experienced only a 7.5% rate of grade 3 and 4 adverse events. That compares to either a roughly 40% or 55% for Jetana. And you can see that neutropenia, febrile neutropenia, thrombocytopenia, neutropenic infection, we were also significantly lower. So a significantly better side effect profile. It's not just prostate cancer that this product has shown to have efficacy in. We've also seen some very good responses in platinum-resistant ovarian cancer. And we've also seen some excellent responses in upper GI gastroesophageal tumours as well. So that's the first product, and I'm not going to go through all of these in a huge amount of detail, but I did want to talk about two other clinical candidates that we have, dep/irinotecan, which is an improved dendrimer version of the widely used Pfizer product Camtasar. It is originally called irinotecan, and what we have done is we have taken the irinotecan is metabolized and is quite a toxic drug. It has some black box warnings for both life-threatening diarrhea and also bone marrow toxicity. And so these two toxicities restrict its use. It's a significant product with peak sales of over $1 billion, but it has these very significant toxicities with 20 to 40% of patients experiencing this very severe diarrhea, which can result in hospitalization. And to give you an idea of how severe this is, this would be people who were needing to use their bowels probably 6 to 8 times a day. So this is a very significant problem, and as I said, it often requires hospitalization. And I'll show you the dep/irinotecan product, so the StarPharma proprietary product, which we have developed, and the clinical trial data is to be released shortly. We saw no evidence of severe diarrhea, so none of our patients experienced this severe diarrhea. We have the benefit in that our product does not require conversion in the liver, which is what is required for Camtasar. We have new patents on the product out to 2039 plus an additional 5 years. So in the case of dep/cabazitaxel, dep/irinotecan, dep/docetaxel, and products where we use the DEP technology, we can create this new intellectual property, and that allows us to extend or to generate new patent lives. Now, our patients were also very heavily pre-treated, but despite this, we saw a significantly lower level of toxicities, and in particular, this very severe diarrhea, which is with the Pfizer product is experienced by 20 to 40% of patients, and as I said, often requires hospitalization. We saw no cases of that with dep/irinotecan. We saw less nausea, less vomiting, no cholinergic syndrome in any of our patients, and these patients treated with dep/irinotecan have reported a significantly better, many of them have had irinotecan before, significantly better experience and significantly fewer side effects. As I mentioned, we will be releasing the data from this study in both colorectal cancer and a number of other cancers, including platinum-resistant ovarian cancer, where we've seen some really interesting responses. And there's not enough time in this presentation to go through all of that in detail. However, we are trialing the drug both alone and in combination in colorectal cancer. And we have also seen some, and on the screen in front of you is some results from a very heavily pretreated 56-year-old woman with platinum-resistant ovarian cancer. She'd had 16 cycles of 5 different kinds of therapy, and she had progressed despite this, so she'd come into our study. She experienced a 95% reduction in the ovarian cancer biomarker, complete resolution of her ascites, which is fluid in the abdomen, and pleural effusion, so fluid in the chest, and this 95% reduction in tumor biomarker. This response was maintained for more than 36 weeks. So these durable responses in heavily pretreated patients who failed other therapies are a feature of the patient cohorts across these 3 products. And as I mentioned, We're at a really interesting stage because we will be reporting the results from our clinical programs. We've already completed recruitment for dep-docetaxel, dep-cabazitaxel, and we're in the final stages of recruitment in this product, dep-irinotecan. There's a lot of interest in this dep-irinotecan area. This is the same category of drug, or using the same payload as is in HER2, the AstraZeneca drug, which is seeing some very significant growth. So those two products, so that's dep-cabazitaxel and dep-irinotecan, for cabazitaxel for prostate cancer and a number of other tumours, irinotecan for colorectal cancer, and the final one in our internal program, which has also recently completed recruitment, is dep-docetaxel, which is used across a range of different tumours. Again, the original product has significant black box warnings, and the dendrimer version does not experience these same problems. Significantly less neutropenia and bone marrow toxicity, significantly, in fact, we have no detergent in our formulation, so there's no need for pretreatment, and again, a patented product. We've seen activity across a range of different tumor types as listed on that previous slide. This is just an example of a lady with advanced uterine cancer, had tried 11 cycles of 3 other therapies before she came in. She experienced a durable response with shrinkage of more than 52%, which was a durable response for more than 23 weeks. So that just gives you an example of the kinds of clinical responses that we've seen with this product, dep-docetaxel. So those 3 clinical candidates will be reporting the data, and as I mentioned, they are licensing opportunities. In addition to those, I mentioned that there are a number of preclinical opportunities, so antibody drug conjugates, which is the area that we've partnered with Merck. So we have a couple of programs running with Merck. We have programs with Genentech and with AstraZeneca, but in ADCs, Merck in particular is focused in this area. This is a very active market. There's a lot of interest in this area. And one of the pieces of data which we released, there are a number of benefits and advantages of the DEP platform for these kinds of products. What we've done here is we have created a dendrimer version of an antibody drug conjugate. So this is a HER2 targeted antibody drug conjugate. The payload here is SN38, which is like Enhertu's payload, but a slightly different version. It is using a breakdown product from irinotecan. And one of the benefits which we can deliver for our partners and in terms of these products is that we can load far more drug onto the dendrimer because of the highly branched structure. We're able to load a lot more drug molecules. So you can see in HER2, which is really getting some excellent results, they can get 8 drug molecules on. In this case, we've got 13 drug molecules on, and the marketed product, Kadcyla, only has about 3.5. So significantly higher drug antibody ratios, and it's a little small to see there, but actually we have efficacy performance here for the dendrimer version, that HER2 targeted dendrimer ADC, which is better than the marketed product in HER2 in this HER2 positive model of ovarian cancer. There is a lot of interest in this antibody drug conjugate area. It's a very rapidly growing part, and it's an opportunity for both internal candidates and also for partnerships, as I mentioned, with Merck. There are a number of benefits here in terms of improved efficacy and very good penetration. And so this is a particular area of interest. In addition to that, radiopharmaceuticals, so companies are Novartis, Endocyte, Point Therapeutics, and a whole range of other companies in this area. This is a very rapidly developing area in prostate cancer and a range of other areas. We also have internal programs, a number of programs in radiopharmaceuticals, both in the diagnostic space and also in the treatment space. These are often paired, so you can visualize the tumor with the diagnostics, the radiodiagnostics, using these radioactive isotopes, and also the therapeutic is a paired product. So that's the therapeutic pair of the diagnostic. So this radiotherapeutic area is also an area of significant interest, an area of partnerships, but also for development candidates. And I won't go into the further detail, but there are a number of benefits for the DEP technology. Now, I want to move quickly through some of these other products and move into our marketed products, seeing we're approaching the end of the presentation. In addition to the drug delivery programs, which I mentioned, both our partnered ones with AstraZeneca and Merck and Genentech and others, and our internal candidates, StarPharma has also used the dendrimer technology to develop a number of anti-infective products. And I'm going to focus in particular on the Viralase nasal spray product and touch briefly on Vivigel BV. The Viralase nasal, so this is a single dendrimer molecule, which is a potent antiviral molecule and binds irreversibly to a range of viruses, including a number of these respiratory viruses. It's formulated into a topical nasal spray called Viralase, and it is a broad spectrum antiviral nasal spray. The active ingredient is active in multiple viruses, so influenza, respiratory syncytial virus or RSV, coronaviruses, which cause the common cold, and rhinoviruses, including the COVID virus SARS-CoV-2. In the case of all of these viruses, it acts in the same way. The nasal spray can be used as a mucoadhesive barrier, which is applied to the nasal cavity by this spray and sits there and acts as a physical barrier which traps and blocks any viral particles it comes into contact with. So usage in things like travel, on aeroplanes, on crowded trains, in supermarkets, in work environments, this product can be used ahead of time and can be used to protect you in addition to vaccination strategies against the viral particles which you might inhale, and it traps them and blocks them on that nasal mucosa. Now, there's not a lot of time to go through all of the data here, but there is a significant amount of data which has been generated behind this product and published. This is some data which was published and presented at a conference, international conference. Most of this work has been done with the Scripps Research Institute in the US. And you can see there that in lung, in trachea, and in the nose, we get very significant reductions in viral load. And so this antiviral effect is a very potent antiviral effect, which both reduces the risk of infection, but also potentially reduces infectivity as well. When we compare the activity of Viralase against some other marketed nasal sprays, including the ones listed here, Cold Defense, Sanitize, Vicks Burst Defense, you can see that Viralase's ability to reduce the infectious SARS-CoV-2, so these are the Omicron COVID virus particles, in lung versus saline, was significantly greater for Viralase. So it outperforms these other nasal sprays, which have a similar mechanism of action. The product is already registered in more than 35 countries around the world, most recently registered in Malaysia, but it's also registered in the UK, in Europe, across a range of Asian territories, Middle East and elsewhere. We have partnered, recently launched the product in Hong Kong and Macau, and we're pursuing registration in China and a number of other markets across Asia and other parts of the world. So this topical antiviral nasal spray has the ability to generate revenues for StarPharma for reinvesting into those DEP oncology products that we were talking about earlier. We are conducting a post-approval study, so this is not a study required for registration. We can achieve the registrations without this study, but this study will generate some additional data which will be useful for marketing purposes, and that study is more than 80% recruited in the UK. So that study's going along really well. Very briefly, and just closing, the sort of final product, Vivigel BV, is a topical antimicrobial, same active ingredient which is in the Viralase product, which can be used to both treat bacterial vaginosis, which is a very common vaginal infection, and also to prevent it. It's a non-antibiotic therapy, highly novel, topically applied, which has got a very good tolerability profile. It's registered in more than 45 countries around the globe, launched in the countries you can see listed there, and partnered across with a number of commercial partners. And finally, the Vivigel condom, which has been partnered with a number of companies, including Okamoto. We're well placed financially, with closing cash of just under $40 million, strong cash position, and as I mentioned earlier, an exciting outlook across both our drug delivery portfolio on the left, with clinical assets reporting, partnership programs moving forward, milestones payable, and future partnerships, as well as those marketed products on the right. Thank you